My guest this evening has made a living upsetting people from the day he first opened his mouth. Probably started with his parents, but he's a bit like the Jay-Z song, on to the next one. After resigning from his job as Idols judge, he is now an author and into a new program called #Invest. He's also trying to provide clients with a portfolio which offers consistent yield above bank interest rates by investing in liquid assets. Ooh, that's big. This is the MoneyMakers, and I'm Bruce Whitfield. Tonight I'm talking about markets, and I'm talking about the business of showbiz with the head of CliffCentral, Gareth Cliff, who's also written a book recently. There it is. It's called Cliffhanger. It's all in the corporate colours. He's sticking to brand. How long did this take to write?
I began it in March. It's really a distillation of 4 stories. The first one being my fixation with freedom of speech. Mm-hmm. The second part being about radio, which I've been in for 20 years now. Television is another chapter, which includes Idols. And then finally, what we've started online with CliffCentral. So it's
freedom of speech, Penny Sparrow.
Yeah.
This time last year.
Yes.
All hell broke loose. So you got fired from Idols. You got yourself a top advocate. You won the battle, but have you lost the war?
No, I don't see how.
You've left Idols. Isn't that losing the war, or was that on your own terms?
I was ready to go 3 years ago. The point was that it provided a useful platform for me to keep publicizing what we were doing online. And I enjoyed my time on Idols tremendously, but you know, you must leave at the top. The ratings on that show have gone up and up and up, and I wish them well going forward. I don't have any inclination that they'll start dropping anytime soon. But for me, it was enough. 11 seasons on television is a long time. It's 15 years, which you know about TV. Most shows don't last 3 years, especially in the modern format. So I was very pleased for my time there. No war lost, battle won. And not just a battle against Mnet, against kind of the corporation versus the freelancer, but also against social justice warriors online who make a big noise and threaten to get people fired from jobs and actually are effete incompetent windbags who have nothing valuable to add to society or to the discourse.
One of the best things that's happened during 2016 is the exposure of paid Twitter, and those vigilantes are out there for a political reason, for a misguided social reason, or whatever it might be.
Or just the Guptas paying for them.
Or just the Guptas paying for them to try and take people down and to try and destroy the public discourse.
And obviously for them, I would have been a big fish had they succeeded. So it was also a principled thing about reputation. And if I helped along the way to dismantle that kind of autocracy and hiding, then so be it. An autocracy against freedom of speech, if nothing else.
It was masterful hiring Dalian. Your idea?
Well, his idea to actually defend the situation.
Okay.
He was my guest on my show on the Friday that Mnet fired me. So that morning I said to him, I have an inkling that they're going to get rid of me. And he said, if they do, please call me immediately. So I thought, well, and I'm not litigious. I've never been to court for anything like this before. And in the normal course of business, Rena, my business partner, and I would ordinarily try to find a compromise. Sure. In this case, Dalian insisted that we fought, and he likes fighting. Yeah. He gets a thrill out of it. He's very good at it. And I was proud to have him. He's been a tremendous ally. He's been a tremendous teacher in some ways. And I feel like he's the kind of guy who, while he's a bit of a showbiz advocate, is also someone who is deeply concerned with some of the things that I share in terms of not ideology necessarily, but in terms of principle.
Yeah. That principle, CliffCentral, you created unradio, as you call it, narrowcasting rather than broadcasting. It's this principle of getting online radio going in South Africa. What, 3 years old?
Yeah, we'll turn 3 in May of next year.
Okay, so nearly almost 3 years old. Nobody said you'd last in more than 6 months, including yourself, I suspect.
Well, I was nervous, and I think there'd be huge amounts of hubris if I said to you, oh no, I was sure it would be a slam dunk. And obviously a lot of people talk about the internet as the future, and there's a lot of flowery conversation that goes on around that. But I was convinced that this was the place where freedom of speech could flourish the best, where people, ordinary people, not seasoned broadcasters like you or I, would have an opportunity to show their wares, to do their thing, and to do it in an unregulated, unrestricted place, hence unradio. And it has turned out to be a very popular option for people indeed. And with this Trump victory and Brexit, there's a lot of discredit going around in the media business, and especially mass media. And I think people are turning to alternative sources for the kind of sustenance that they want in terms of truth, in terms of an option of viewpoints, and a place where they can find the kind of content that they care about.
Are you making money?
Yes, thankfully. I won't say we're making a killing at the moment, but we've certainly managed to, against all odds, survive.
Because you went into it without funding, which is unthinkable.
Well, yeah, and was terrifying. You know, there were moments where I thought, I don't know how much more of this my bond can take. And you have to do these things if you believe enough in something. And I did. That was one thing that was absolutely clear to me. I believed in the people I was doing it with. I believed in the audience. And I believe that this is an inevitable step. And if I weren't first, to be anywhere else would have been to be last and too late.
2 Oceans Vibe did a lot of damage because they were accused of lying about their numbers and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, it's still a
Are you
problem.
measuring? Can you measure?
We measure podcasts on CliffCentral.com because live listening is still onerous. You can measure it in a number of ways. There are concurrents, there are clicks, there are uniques, there are a number of different measures, and no one is quite, and we're trying to draw up that blueprint at the moment, no one has quite fixed the idea of what it means. When someone says to me, how many listeners do you have? I struggle to give them a number, not because I'm going to make anything up, but because there are so many numbers. We have so much data available to us online. In radio terms, you know, it's much more simple because they go out and do a survey on clipboards once every 4 months, and then they suddenly tell you, oh, you're changing the methodology and your listenership is at half, which is ridiculous.
It is.
It's 1983 technology. So we have too much information to be able to give people a simple answer to a simple question of how many listeners do you have. Instead, on CliffCentral, we've always measured on podcast downloads, which is a very safe way to give an idea of your audience, and it's good.
Ultimately, cash flow is all that matters.
Yes.
And the cash is coming through the front door and it's leaving slowly out the back door.
We have to, and I have to say there are, despite a lack of courage in South African business to do anything out of the ordinary and to go anywhere that isn't safe. I think you have spoken about that so many times on your own show. I have to say there are clients who deserve applause for understanding the value that this could bring, and the fact that you're talking to real people on a medium that they've chosen, that you haven't chosen the audience, but the audience has chosen you.
And that's the power of it. I mean,
I think so.
The internet is the great sort of democratizer, if you like, and people, a bit like the radio switch, but you never know once they've switched it off. On the internet, you can tell when the clicks slow down.
Absolutely, and they're a hugely engaged audience. These are early adopters. These are people who I think will define the parameters of not only media and marketing and advertising in the future, but will largely be the people who make decisions.
Are you setting yourself up for digital broadcasting in the true sense of digital broadcasting, not internet radio?
Right. Well, we are, absolutely. And also, you know, in terms of that, there needs to be a visual component. The only thing holding us back in South Africa is the cost of data, which we're working on in another sense. Thibaut Touch and I with Data Must Fall. We've created the first little crack in the dam wall. I by no means think we've achieved our goal. But we need to do that, so the cost must come down. And the other thing that must happen is that we must free up the spectrum, and we must allow people to use their mobile phones for all the things they already do and more.
But that's where you come into the regulatory space once again, because regulations forbid the freeing up of spectrum, and there's a whole long, drawn-out Department of Communications battle over that.
One of the reasons we went to Parliament.
Yeah.
And it's one of the reasons I think that they didn't expect us to appear in Parliament and bring that up. I'm a believer in the internet being as unregulated as possible, even though it sometimes becomes a very nasty and onerous place, and we've both experienced it. We all have. I don't think there's a person in the world who thinks that the internet is the safest place to put your opinions anymore. Because there's a howling, marauding mob of social justice warriors who will tell you that you should shut up, which is the antithesis of the freedom of speech they've been granted by the internet. They don't seem to understand this.
Tell me about invest. Hashtag invest. We've got to move on, because hashtag invest is a big bet, because you're telling your listeners, trust me, I am not an investment specialist.
No, I'm careful not to. Anthea Gardner from Cartesian Capital is. She's worked, she's got a very good CV. She has been an asset manager for some time. She is the one who gives us our money updates every day on the show. So we were talking about it, and I said to her, well, wouldn't it be nice if our audience, who are clearly interested in the stock market, had some skin in the game? And these days it is possible for ordinary people with as little as 100 Rand to get into fractional share ownership and eventually into full share ownership without having to have a broker, without having to have a complex asset management portfolio or anything like that. You can decide based on your risk profile which of the 4 products you want, And we will update you daily and then monthly in a newsletter, and Easy Equities have built the platform for that.
Now, Easy Equities, I mean, they've got the background for that, so they can do it very, very easily.
And all the products are FSB approved and all of that stuff. So I'm under no illusion that I'm not an advisor in this respect.
But what if your listeners start losing money? Suddenly there's a 2008 type scenario, and they start saying, hold on a second, but you told us to put our money here.
Well, I didn't.
No.
I said this is one of the options. And I'm very careful to do that. What I don't want to do is for anybody to imagine that there's a world of, I mean, charismatic churches do worse than this on a daily basis. You haven't had them on to hold them over the coals about what if it goes wrong.
No, I can't.
So here's the understanding. The understanding is that the stock market is a living thing, that we are sometimes subject, whether we're clever investors or rubbish investors, to the vagaries of international politics, of international banks, of currencies, of volatilities, political instabilities, all kinds of things that you discuss here every day. I should hope that an audience that is educated would be able to know the difference. And we're certainly not going to try to pull the wool over anyone's eyes. But wouldn't it be nice if ordinary people had a chance to join in white monopoly capital in the form of the stock market, therefore
make money out of it.
Have a reason to understand the economy and to be involved and interested and engaged in it, rather than to just see it as some monolithic thing that you're not allowed to be a part of.
Now, okay, that's the history. Where's the next chapter? What's in this part of the book?
Well, I've closed a few chapters in the last year, and I'm very happy to do that so I can clear space for more things. I have been paying a lot of attention to what's going on in technology, particularly in broadcast technology. I was in New York 2 or 3 weeks ago at Sirius Satellite Radio, where I pop in from time to time to see what they're up to. They've got millions, 38 million subscribers who pay $12 a month to listen. And there are models that they're working on, and largely their competition is going to be in internet radio, which is what we're in. I also think that there is enormous scope for this country and for other African countries to build communities online through listening. You know, we've only been reading for 500 years or so, if you consider the Gutenberg press and the rest of it. In this country, probably largely for the last 150 years, certainly publishing in this country is only 100 or so years old, which means that our primary source of information and of improving ourselves and of figuring out the world and of dealing with reality has to be through listening.
Yeah, oral traditions are very strong.
And therefore, podcasts are the best way to pass that information on, because you can rewind if you didn't understand, listen to it again, interrogate it, engage with it, offer a podcast of your own. If you disagree vehemently, you've got a good point of view, you think you might draw an audience, come and visit us. We'll give you a show.
No, but see, he's offering shows. Gareth Cliff. He is the founder of CliffCentral. He's the author of Cliffhanger, the story about Gareth Cliff. The story so far, no doubt there'll be lots more stories to come. More market boom busts and cliffhangers on future Moneymakers, no doubt. For now, thanks very much for watching. Good night.